I was thinking today, a question I used to ask myself all the time when I was younger, or kids used to ask other kids in general when we were younger. What do you want to be when you grow up? You know, I'm 36, almost 37. I'm laid off work. Got the opportunity to go back to work fairly soon. Not what I want to do. I keep watching all these podcasts and reading all these books and watching all these YouTube videos about do what you want to do. Do what makes you happy. If you love what you do, you never actually work. I hear that constantly. I love Joe Rogan, and I watch Joe Rogan or listen to Joe Rogan's podcast, and it's, you know, don't settle. Don't do something that you're not happy doing. Do something that you truly love to do. I hear that over and over and over again. And I knew kids growing up that knew exactly what they wanted to do. I mean, or at least in a close approximation. Even if they didn't grow up to be that, there were one or two things that they would always say they wanted to be. Well, I wanted to be a soldier. And I wanted to be a cop. And I wanted to be a lawyer. And I wanted to be an actor. And I wanted to be a talk show host. And I wanted to be a musician. And I wanted to be an author. I wanted to be a cowboy. I wanted to be a rancher. I mean, there were so many things. I could never narrow it down to one thing. One thing I wanted to do for the rest of my life. The thought of that alone scares me, to do one thing for the rest of my life. I am a poet. And I did write a book and publish a poetry book, but, you know, that's not going to pay the bills. And I don't even know that I necessarily want that to pay the bills. I don't look at it that way. I got to write something. I got to live out a dream. A dream was to have a published book. But I don't know my dreams to be just a poet. I'd like to have a podcast, yeah. I'm the most untech savvy person in the world. And I know what you'd say. Well, then you have to put in that work. But do I want to do it bad enough to learn how to do all those things? Yeah. So say I do, because I've done that before. I've went, this is what I want to do, and go gun-ho at it. And then by the time I'm ready to do it, it's not what I want to do any longer. I have a bad problem with that. I have a bad problem with getting fixated on one thing, and by the time I get to do it, it's not what I want to do any longer. So what happens if you don't know what you want to be, even if you're already grown up? Give me the chance to travel the world and lecture and talk about my book? Yeah, I would do that. Give me the chance to be an actor? Yeah, I would do that. Give me the chance to be an author? I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I would do any of those things forever. I don't know if I'd do any of those things exclusively. I mean, I've made choices to this point. I'm married with 2 kids, and I wouldn't change anything about those 2 choices. But those choices do limit to some degree what I'm willing to gamble to do what I want to do. But that's not what's stopping me. Because I hear that from a lot of people. A lot of people say, I can't exactly go do exactly what I want to do because there's too much at risk. There's too much being gambled to do so. I'm taking too big of a risk with my family's future to do it. I don't even have that issue because I don't know if it's a gamble. I don't know if it's a risk because I don't know what I want to do. And I wonder, am I the only one? Does everybody else know what they want? I mean, not are you doing what you want to do, but do you know unequivocally what you would do if you could do anything? I don't know. Maybe make YouTube vlogs. Maybe that's what I would do if I could do anything. I don't know. Spend a lot of time talking to myself. Why not talk to the phone and put it up where other people can see it? But at 36 years old, if you had a gun to my head today, I don't know what I want to be the rest of my life. I love the notion. I love the idea. Do what you love. Do something you really want to do. I really want to walk the Appalachian Trail. Well, there's no living to be made technically walking the Appalachian Trail. But even if there were, I can only do that for so long. 6 months if I do it correctly and I make good time and all that. But you know, what am I going to do after that? Another trail? Maybe I won't want to walk another trail. Maybe hiking's just a part of a complete life. Maybe riding is just a part of a complete life. I love the martial arts. I've over the last 2 years just got started doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. My nephew got me into it, and two guys I consider heroes of mine, Anthony Bourdain and Joe Rogan. They do it, and I thought I love that, and I did. I do love it. It's a challenge. It's not 100% of my life. It's a part of a complete life. You know, I don't know what the answer is. I keep looking for a single solitary answer. That one single thing, that thing I want to do for the rest of my life. See, I got to start at some point going in some direction, because I hit kind of like a midlife crisis to where for a long time I wasn't satisfied with anything. I hated my job, which I lost, so that's fortuitous. If nothing else, I don't have to deal with that any longer. But I hated my job. I hated where I lived. I hated being stuck where I lived. I hated the type of life. I'm big on watching things about documentaries and reading books about minimalism. I don't know how minimal I could live, but much more so than I am. But see, that doesn't coincide with how my wife wants to live, or my daughter wants to live, or my son wants to live. And I want to be respectful to what they want and how they want to live, because that's not fair. I changed my mind at the blink of an eye, so it's not fair for me to bring them into something that they didn't sign up for. So I don't know. But of all those issues and all those problems that have kept that keep coming to a head, my activities went down. My weights went up. Stress has gotten astronomical. Anxiety. Got addicted to social media. I have all those issues that I've always looked at as separate issues, as issues that I need to address. See, when I had an addiction to nicotine, I quit. I quit alcohol. I quit caffeine. I quit all these things, these single things, and treated them as single issues as I quit them. And maybe those were to some degree. But the obesity, the bad diet, the poor sleep, the lack of motivation, the anxiety, the stress, the unhappiness, and the constant asking, what do I want to do? That all seems to stem from that one question. What do I want to do? I don't know. And I don't know if I'm supposed to. And it's one of those questions I've never asked anybody else. It's an odd question, because I don't necessarily expect to figure out exactly what it is I want to do and then go do that one thing. But I at least want to know. And maybe in knowing, that'll give me something I can work for. See, I used to have a really bad problem of living in the past. I constantly would think about how great my childhood was. It was great. And I would think about how great high school was, and it was great. And I would think about all those things, and I would think about, man, the late 80s were so much better than the early 2000s, and the 90s were so much better than the mid 2000s. And they were. I mean, that's fair and undeniable. Pizza Hut didn't suck. Super Mario was awesome. You know, it really was. TV was better. Music was better. But that's beside the point. Living in the past, I did it exclusively almost. Once I got to 18, I kind of lived in the moment for a little while. I met my wife, fell in love, got married, we had kids. But then, by 30, I'd given up on maybe pursuing anything that was difficult. I really did at one point in time want to be a lawyer and a politician. And I think that would surprise almost all the people that know me besides my wife. That I wanted, if I said I wanted to be a stand-up comedian or I wanted to be a musician, I think my friends would look at that and go, ha, I can see him wanting to do that. He'll never do it, but I could see it. But I did have goals and dreams. And I didn't necessarily put those aside to be married and have a family. I did what a lot of people do. I used being married and having a family as an excuse to put those things aside, because it would have required harder work than I was willing to do at the time. And hindsight's 20/20, and if, like anyone else, if I had known then what I know now, things now would be different. But living in that constant state of, man, I'd like to go back, man, what if I would even at times dream of just, let me start over. Let me be a better father to my daughter because I was such a young father. Just constantly wanting to start over. And I think that stunted my ability to figure out what I wanted to do. I've gotten over that problem. I've gotten over that issue of, wanting to go back, I don't want to. Those times were great, but right now is much more important. Right now is much more fulfilling. Right now, laid off, I can feel myself getting sedentary. I can feel myself becoming complacent in nothing. And that's not good. That's not what I want. That doesn't make me happy. So I'm not going to allow myself to go down that rabbit hole. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get in shape. I'm going to change my life, at least make attempts to go in directions that I think are positive. And if they're not, I'll find out. But I've made the decision to do those things in the past, but I've not always carried them through. I've seldom carried them. It's very seldom seen those things through, actually. Most of the time, it loses its interest and I move on. But what if I'd done those things and talked about them and shared them with other people? Maybe then I would have that motivation to move forward. Maybe then I would have that desire to do something just because I felt like whoever does watch these, maybe they'll hold me accountable. Maybe they'll go down in the comments and say, hey, I'm having the same issue, or, I did this, or, maybe this would work, or I always wondered, if this was an issue for me. Maybe it'll open some sort of discussion, some sort of positive two-way conversation to where I can connect with someone who has went through this, is going through this, thinks they're going through this. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm the only one that never could figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up, especially when I finally grew up. Or maybe nobody knows. Maybe you're not supposed to know. But I think we should have an idea. I think I should at least be able to narrow it down. Shouldn't I be able to narrow it down to 3? Because I could give you 30 off the top of my head that right now in this moment I would willingly do. I only need 1. And again, I don't need to be doing that. If I decide that to be a Shakespearean trained actor is what I want to do for the rest of my life, and that's truly my life's dream, then at least to know it, to do it in my spare time, to practice it, and I assure you that's not it. But if it were, to just know, so that I could have that peace of mind of knowing, that's just as important to me as, say, one day doing it. But to not know it all, to feel lost, to feel constantly just, I don't know. That's an empty feeling. And I don't like it. I look at people around me that I believe are doing those things. A friend I went to grade school with, he has a job that's not based around art, but he is an artist. And I constantly see him posting things that he does. And I've known him long enough to know that even though he may not be able to quantify in words exactly what the job title he wanted to do for the rest of his life would be, or at this moment, could he say exactly, this is the job title I want? But I can assure you, it would involve art. It would involve drawing. It would involve expressing himself through that medium. And he is. To some degree, he is. There's a girl I went to school with. She's a true artist. That's what she does. I see her work. I see what she does. And I believe that that's her dream. I've got a neighbor that I've just become friends with in the last couple of years, and he's a blacksmith. He would say he's an apprentice, but I can't do what he does, so I would have to say, compared to me, he's definitely a blacksmith. And he's doing what he wants to do. And he does it in a way I'm envious of. Not just the work he does, but the lifestyle he lives and the way he chooses to live. Those things highly impress me. I want to impress myself, maybe just once. I want to impress my kids. I want my kids to look at me and go, you know what? Dad did what he wanted to do, or at least he knew what he wanted to do and he attempted it. I'd like to know what I wanted to do. So, if you watch these videos, you're probably going to get tired of me very quickly, because I'm going to document this from beginning until wherever it ends. It may end tomorrow with me just coming to the conclusion that I can't figure out what I want to be or who I want to be. But I'm going to try, if nothing else, to talk it out. You guys are like cheap therapy. So this is the first video. If you like it, hit the like button. If you really like it, subscribe. If you got something to say about it, say it. Put it in the comments. If you want to share it, share it. And maybe we can figure this out together.